Hello, bom aya. Meta síndico generally, después de dia 5 po non supposed to be bom aya. Pero te prometo ko, may tabing conversar ko po sa aya aqui, so I feel like it's appropriate. Sa bong aya, happy Saturday. Hope you had a nice week, a productive one, whatever that means to you. A good one. Tininos ko kung sa trabaho, so sad. Tininos ko, ay, nato ko vakansi. So, may espero po ta enjoying po ultimo dia ng di vakansi. Ipaisonan ko ta getting ready pa fakal awin noche. I hope you have fun, karata safe. Make sure ko ting designated driver people. No, G's pa sobra ko police may nabong boot. Pero because overall safety of everyone, so, you know, keep that in mind. Yung system, si bata parable friend, yung system, onda ko basta bay topa otro, isa ko ko sang kita same mane standard, pero mita bay repetinang, pa sobra, mita kira safety is very, very important. To kara have fun. Of course, mita kira sa ita main goal, mita spera ko weather kida nice, anto awan no yobe, pa sobra, mita no hay sa ilik, misa ko tinipos ko sita hay sa ilik, pero mita spera ko sa hindi no bay pasa. Anto, yes, wishing y'all a nice carnival season. No slow, of course, touching on that subject sometime next week in the coming episodes nang, pero awin no sabay kumisa ko un topiko mas related to like the new year. Sabay papa di New Year's scary sa eigenlijk to repression ang kutabing ore ayan no pohabre oras kung sa topa hindi trabaho hindi ba kaya whatever sabay papa tiki di say tiki more self-compassion eigenlijk ato mita baita conversando ko Bibi-Jane mita kere conversation di abito baita mostly na English manera buso sa pamita importante pa nos por expresarnos to the best of our abilities con los guests das awe nos baita papeando mostly ding English. But we might use some papimento words, basta may sakong turisa kita bay. Anto, yeah, si bating kalke pregunta falgasina, do let us know. Karaku nasa live riba kulefam sa YouTube e Facebook e of course Sincerely Carolina sa YouTube e episode luta available riba Jamars riba bo favorite podcasting platform, whichever that may be. Anto, yeah, my number is Carolina. Minus as movie say at some point. And I'm the host is Sincerely Carolina, and we just started with season 4. Yay! Gonna be thanking my awesome sponsors for making this possible, of course. Thank you to La Roche, thank you to Total, thank you to Febreze. I appreciate you. We will be doing fun giveaways, of course, in the coming weeks. So stay tuned. All right. Meeting hope ideas in my life. Imita si mi stamta not cooperating. Pero no sabay work on it, okay? So without further ado, mita bay laga nos gas introduce si Sumes. Mita kira si bata riba Instagram, riba social media of some form. Basta sa aking Bibi-Jane ta, pero in case of y'all don't know, mita bay laga Bibi-Jane introduce herself and tell us a little bit of who she is. And yeah, we'll go from there as we usually do. Hello, Bibi-Jane.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I have a little bit of a cold, but hope you're grateful that I can sit here with you.
Yay! So, meeting hope to follow Bibi-Jane to be sam to be sele or be aruba mas singo manes pre-cough anto I feel like a lot of people do that. I don't do that. So if I reach out, it's because I really want to have a conversation. So we hope contento con us for have that conversation. And to ribon topic ko mita sintita like, you know, match what you're doing as well in your content and stuff. So it worked out perfect. So Bibi-Jane, tell us, what do you do? You know, you're a content creator. What does that mean? What content do you create? For those that don't know you.
I'm a video content creator. I have a podcast as well. But I always have a hard time speaking on the Kikomi content. I feel like, to put it in easy words, I feel like in my 20s, I experienced a lot of issues myself, and I feel like to help me understand my own feelings and thoughts, I kind of make videos about it, and crazy enough, some people relate. So I guess that's kind of what's it about, and it's been really exciting. I've been doing this for a lot of years, but I really love it. I love it so much.
Yes, and I mean, I think you said something really important, and you know, people relate, and I think that a lot of us are usually afraid that people, you know, do not relate to thoughts we're having or situations we're going through, but people are, and thanks to social media, you know, pros and cons. We always talk about that, but we get to see it and hear it and like not feel so isolated, even if it's somebody who's like miles away, on the other side of the world, speaking a different language. Point is that they're shared human experiences, so that's nice. Bibi-Jane, you also do a lot with denim, and you're a little bit in fashion, or a little bit of lotto. So maybe tell us a little bit about your fashion and your love for denim.
Yeah, so I moved to the Netherlands around 8 years ago, and I lived on Aruba before that. So moving to the Netherlands, like that's when fashion for me was like, oh my god, there's seasons and there's like fashion weeks and this, that, and you have a lot of department stores you can choose from, and it was all really exciting to me. But at some point I started to realize like, oh, the clothes break fast, and I started to dive into like where they're made, how they're made, and that's also when I discovered thrift stores. It's something my mom always told me about, thrift stores. I was like, Mom, that's lame. I don't like, what is that? No one goes there. But then I went and I found it really exciting. It was like a treasure hunt for me. Even though some things didn't really fit sometimes, or I felt like, okay, this is a cool material, but I don't like how it fits or how it looks. And my mom always like sewed around the house and was always repairing things and stuff. So I thought, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. So I bought a sewing machine and always gravitated towards denim because I felt like that was like a strong material.
It is generally.
Generally, that's a really good point. Yeah, not all denim, but yeah, that's kind of how I fell in love with it, and I think it really ties into my storytelling I do today. I think denim can really tell stories because it can be so strong. And you probably know, if you have a jeans that's like your jeans and you've been wearing for 10 years, it has certain rips and things that is true to you and what you've done in the jeans.
Yeah. Totally. Yes. So, I think that you are a multifaceted person, right? I think a lot of people in the younger generations have like these different identities, which I absolutely love, maybe compared to like other generations where people's identities are very tied to like one thing, but like you mentioned it all, you mention it in your podcast frequently. It also comes with like certain pressures because like people are like waiting to see what comes next. Anytime you have a conversation with like other people, and then in different stages of life, different age groups, and then they have questions. But I have noticed that there are things that happen in certain seasons which are intensified, right? And around the New Year's, like it's not even like the first couple of days, but the first month, like January, tends to bring a lot of questions about like the rest of the year and what you're gonna do and how you're gonna like set things up. And on a system level, I understand, like, at work, you might, this might be the month where you're setting goals for like the year, financially too. It's like, where a lot of fiscal years start. It might be, when like blasting starts and all that kind of stuff. So I understand how our brains have fixated around like January 1st. Starting January 1st, it's like a new cycle. It's how our calendar works, right? The new year starts in. But in my opinion, I feel like, New Year's Eve is fun and like ringing in the new year, but life is like continuous and nothing, in my opinion, absolutely nothing changes between like, the old year and the new year. So whatever is going on in your life is going to continue to go on. Whatever you're working in your life is going to continue to work on. And of course, you can pick new projects and if that helps you. But not everybody is interested in that. And then you might feel like a little shame or pressure when having those conversations. So I don't know. How do you feel about stuff like New Year's resolutions and like plans and stuff? Do you do that?
Oh, I have like such mixed feelings about this. Because like, it's not something I'd say that I like naturally gravitate towards or something, but I still end up doing it. I still end up buying the journal and sitting down and trying to do it. But I've been thinking a lot about, the pros and cons of it. And I also asked on Instagram what people think about it. And it was literally 50-50. Like 50% of people were like, no, you can just start a new goal like whenever. And other people were like, yeah, but it is like the perfect time to reflect and everything. And I think depends how you celebrate the holidays. For me, this holiday season was really like I really felt like I couldn't think about work and I really had to wind down. And I think that's when you do start thinking about goals and everything. But it sometimes feels like an identity crisis. And I feel like your 20s is already like an identity crisis.
For
You
sure.
already like don't know really who you are and you're trying to find yourself. But yeah, I think like each year I'm like, do I need to change my life around? And I'm like, I don't, you know? Yeah.
But it is a pressure, right? And it was, I guess it's interesting to see that, like, what you're saying, like 50-50, like people are at different places. So it's not like a majority feels this way. And of course, it's not representative of the world, but, just to have an idea where people are at. And I do not work with resolutions. I am really bad at even like setting goals, like unless like I have to, unless like I'm getting graded on it, or like I'm gonna be evaluated at work for it. No. And it has to do with my ADHD 100%, because it's hard to like stay on topic, stay on track, and like maintain that level of consistency in anything. So I know that in my case, my life has shown me that I'm not really good at like staying true to those like resolutions or goals. So I almost feel like doing that would like set me up for failure and upset me. So I don't do it. But then you're still confronted with people and they're like, are you going to start the gym? And I'm like, are you trying to tell me something? Because like, I haven't mentioned I want to start the gym. But it's just like so natural, because people are like, they might be planning on like, starting a gym, or they might be planning on like starting like a diet routine, or, a healthy life routine or whatever. Or they might be, considering learning a new skill, and which is nice, but then we tend to like project it onto other people and expect that from other people. And like you said, the 20s are already like so hard. This is my last year as a 20-year-old.
Oh my God.
Yes. And it's kind of scary.
Oh my God, it is. How do you feel turning 30?
Not like bad or anything. I get to like look back, because obviously it's like that's what you do, and then I'm like, and you do end up comparing, to some people or whatever. But I don't think I ever necessarily put specific goals. So I don't feel like I disappointed myself. I don't feel like, oh, by now I should have done this or I should have done that. The only funny fact, the only like goal, how Forbes has like the 30 under 30. Yeah, because you mentioned it. So I have always had like my own Carolina's 30 under 30. And Carolina's 30 under 30 is that I had to like have visited 30 countries by the time I turned 30. And I was super scared that I was not gonna make it. And it was crazy, because it's just me having this thing in my brain, and I keep mentioning it to my husband, I keep mentioning it to like close friends, and I'm like, I need to plan a trip to a place I have not been to yet, because like I need to make this. And then it ended up happening like super spontaneous. I signed up for like a course abroad, and then so I'm going to Malta by the end of this month, and I'm so happy that I'm gonna achieve like the one thing that I was really looking forward to achieve by my 30s. But other than that, I'm married, but it's not like something that I put in my head that I hoped or I was looking forward to get married by 30. We have a house. It's not something that we put as a plan. I certainly didn't. My husband is wired a little bit differently, so I am sure that these things are happening because of him. And we don't have kids, and that is not something that I feel like I should have had that by now. But biologically, it's not just like societally, but I go to physicians and stuff like that, and my clock is very much ticking. So then I do feel a little bit pressure, because I am a statistics girly. So then I do look at the statistics, and then I do panic. And once I cross that 30 threshold, in our specific fertility issues and stuff, like my chances are literally gonna start to plummet. And that is the only thing that I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't feel bad, or I don't feel like, oh, we should have started sooner, because we were not there yet. So it's like not like, but that is the only thing that I'm afraid about or for.
Yeah.
So yeah. How about you? How are you going into this year? I know that you are on the other side of the 20s. I feel like it's different. I feel like you're in like the first half of the 20s, and then you're on the second half of the 20s. How is it like, going into the new year, being your second half of the 20s, just figuring life?
I'm now going to turn 27, and I mean, it's really interesting when you said that thing about traveling to 30 countries. I think naturally I hear my mind saying, should I do that? And I think that's the really interesting thing about goals is like, we see a lot now on social media, and I think it's really easy for us to think like, oh, should we do that? And I read an article about that recently saying that people don't achieve their goals or are not happy with setting goals because they're not their goals. It's goals that they think that they should do because they're seeing other people do it, or it's like expected in society. So yeah, it's really interesting. I like to like write some things down of like numbers, but I feel like that's more like a manifestation thing. But I rarely really look back at it, to be honest. I sometimes wish I was that girl that's like every month like habit tracker and this and that. I just don't have it in me, and I think that's okay. But sometimes it is hard to see people that are like so on point with that, and I sometimes wonder like, is that the path to success? Like, is that something I should be doing to be successful? But then it's like, what is success,
Exactly. And exactly, like, what is it? But also being realistic, I have very much learned to adjust my expectations and goals or dreams or wishes to reality. And I think that social media gives you a space where you can detach from reality, and sometimes that's a good thing, but it can also create a lot of like very, I want to say, like, I don't want to call it crazy, but like unattainable things. And so I wanted to do like 33 countries by the time I turned 30, right? And that was like in my early 20s. I was traveling more at that time. In my teens and my early 20s, I was competing in a sport which I got to travel a lot with. So I felt like it was like 100% going to be attainable, right? But then, I had to finish up my education and do my research. And then I started working. And then realistically, my salary is not the type of salary that's gonna take me to like new countries, like every vacation. Also, vacation days are limited in my case, so then you can adjust. And then I was like, okay, I feel like 30 under 30 countries wise was a very attainable thing for me, and then I adjusted to it, and still being a little bit worried that I might not be able to make it. But that is also okay, that if you start a new era in your life, and then you have like this goal, that you're allowed to kind of go back and be like, maybe I was like over excited, or like I did not consider some things, because you don't know until and then you get to readjust, and that's okay too. So that is my issue when things are like so set, and then when you share them with people, I have this thing. So I don't know, you tell me how you feel. So when you share like a specific dream or goal with people, I feel like if it does not come true, or if you're unable to like achieve it, you're not the only one who's disappointed, but then you have to break the news to other people and see them be disappointed at the same thing. I don't like that. Like, I absolutely do not like that. Like, if I'm doing something, it's for me, and then like I do not need you to be like, ah, or like really, because then I feel like extra bad, and that might be like a little bit of my people's personality thing. But yeah, so even if I have like certain goals during the year, I might not share them with colleagues and stuff, because I'm like, I'm not about to hear you tell me in July that you haven't started the gym. I still see you eating the same or whatever.
Yeah, it has two sides, right? Like on one hand, you can use it as a motivation, but on the other hand, sometimes it's like, maybe the goal is just for you, and you can hold yourself accountable. You don't need those people. But yeah, I can relate. I remember I ran a half marathon last year, and I told everyone, I was like, you better come see. And then the days started to get closer, and I was like, I don't want to see anyone. Why did I tell everyone? And now I need to do it. Yeah.
I don't know how this is gonna work. Yeah. Well, it is scary, and I think you mentioned something nice, because it can work as a motivation, maybe as a form of accountability. Some people like having that. And I think that to some extent I am the kind of person that would need to like have somebody or something to help me be accountable, because I like structure. Or it's not that I like structure. I function well in structure. I don't like it. I want to be able to do whatever I want to do at all times. But structure helps me, make sure that I stay on track and stuff like that. But I think there's still like a difference between like accountability of like, having maybe like a friend that you start running with, or having, a colleague who you're both are gonna like, check in with each other about like your lunches or something, like little things that can actually help, versus like having people who are just gonna like keep tabs,
Yeah, it
And
really depends on the person. Like, who are you gonna tell?
Yeah.
And what are the expectations you can set around that?
Exactly. And should you communicate those?
Yeah.
I was listening to one of your episodes, and you mentioned something along the lines of like, you post content online, which opens up obviously to people having opinions, but then like, should you have those opinions or not? Like, should you set rules around that? I love it when I see posts and people have rules around their posts. Like, they'll be like, no hate speech like accepted, and comments will be deleted. And some people feel like, yeah, why are you putting rules? But yeah, it's my content. Like, I get to set rules, right?
It's creating your own little safe space. Yeah, sometimes hard, but I guess, sometimes it feels nice to be like, okay, this is my little space, and I like to curate it.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes, I don't know, hate comments is a whole thing. Hate in general, what kind of hate is it? Is it feedback? Is it not, But I guess the most annoying things that don't deserve attention are things that are totally off topic and pointing out something that is really not
necessary. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I haven't been to the Netherlands in a while, so after I left I don't want to say that I was upset, because I did go to Europe back. I just didn't go to the Netherlands back. But how has it been being here? And you are very much in the online world. I do not know like what your social life is like in the Netherlands. Like, do you like talk to a lot of people? But I feel like in Aruba, because it's small, and that's just how it works, you tend to bump into more people than intended to, maybe, right? You go to a big grocery store, and then you might bump into like parents' friends, you might bump into old colleagues, you might bump into old school friends, whatever. Have you felt like in any way like these things have like heightened because you're here and it's small, and people have the tendency to measure life and like those milestones or whatever? Like, how has that been?
It's interesting because I feel like I thought that at some point, I don't really care about people's opinion, I'm fine with who I am. But then every time I come here, I catch myself still caring. And I think because it's what you said, because it's small, and I feel like in the Netherlands I can walk and see no one I know for like months, depending on where I am. And here it's different. And I try to not fall back into that bad habit, but I wonder how it is for people here as well. But honestly, I do feel it. I do feel like, I need to have my hair look good and stuff like that. But I try to ground myself and be like, this is just who I am. I can't change it. And then that's just how it is. Yeah.
Have you had like people who you haven't spoken to in a while like come ask you like personal questions? And personal questions is defined by each person, I understand that. But have you felt that where you bump into people and then they're asking you like very specific things, and you're like, hello, I'm fine?
Yeah. Sometimes it's interesting because people say I'm pretty vulnerable on the internet. I don't know if I can say I am, but I think that does open up room for certain conversations.
True.
And on one hand, it's nice because I was always someone that liked deep conversation. I don't like small talk and everything like that. But sometimes it is intense, especially if someone comes with their problems and you're like, I can't solve this, and I don't know how to react. Like, I'm also just a normal human being that I don't know. But it's still something really special that people come up to you and
Mhm.
want to have those vulnerable conversations. So it's a blessing as well.
Yeah, it is, right? I don't know how like other people feel. Culturally, I feel like I'm wired a little bit differently because my parents are not Aruban. So in some things, you adapt, and you obviously grow up in this community and in this culture. So a lot of things you adopt. But then inherently, I feel like with certain things, I tend to be like a little bit more like whatever. So I'm the kind of person that if I want to go to the store close by to my house, and I'm in my pajamas, I might just go in my pajamas, and some people feel like that's like you should not do that. But I do stuff like that. And I do think that I have created like a barrier as a person. So anytime that I go to like the big grocery stores where I know I'm gonna spend some time because I have a long list, and I'm going by myself, because sometimes I'll go like with my husband, or sometimes I'll go with Kay. We do a lot of grocery runs together, and then I'll wear headphones because I do want to create like a physical barrier, where I do not want to have like beyond the hi konta ko po mama na, because I don't as a person, I mean, I talk a lot, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be here, but I'm still relatively reserved about like my own bubble and stuff like that. And I do feel like in certain seasons it fluctuates, and in certain seasons, because there's a lot of emotions going on, and excitement and happiness, and you tend to bump into more people feel like they're also allowed to like ask more, and give more opinions, and maybe even provide like unsolicited advice and solutions to situations. And I think it's hard. So, and I don't think we stand still to the fact that for some people that is overwhelming, and it can stir up like conflicting emotions or uncomfortable emotions. So I think that hopefully going into this new year, we can like watch ourselves when we ask people stuff like that. What's your goal? What do you want to achieve? Like, oh, you didn't achieve that last year. Like, weren't you supposed to finish like last year, or stuff like that. And then just give people grace and let them tell you whatever they feel like they do want to share with you. When they bump into you or something like that.
Yeah, maybe it's also like being on a small island, it kind of feels like everyone, and that kind of creates that maybe feeling to be like, oh, I know you. Like, that's how this is going, right?
It's like, I know you, I know your parents, I know where you went to school. That's a lot of like very personal things. I'm allowed to ask personal things.
Literally. Yeah. No, I can imagine that socially it can be a bit overwhelming, and I think the older we get, the more we get to like show our boundaries. I remember being a teenager, and it was people pleasing everyone.
Okay.
I just didn't have boundaries, and now I'm like, oh, I can like create that, like you said, like that little barrier of like, no, I don't want to talk to people right now, and I'm going to protect my own energy right now, and I have to for myself, and choosing more for yourself as well. Yeah.
And for the people on the other side, it's not personal. I think that's important to say. Like, if somebody does not want to share or does not want to have like an in-depth conversation in aisle 4 of that big grocery store, we're not gonna say its name, it's not personal. It's just that we didn't go there to do that. And some people are able to switch and able to like just listen or talk. And it's not like I have not done that. I have, like, if I feel comfortable, you will see that, and I will engage. I will take out both my headphones, right? If I only take one, that's a sign that I am trying to like go back. But it's you also have to be receptive. I feel like sometimes we lack that receptiveness of like people's body language and people's like the way that they are communicating as well to us, whether or not they want to. And like you said, sometimes people will come up and share like very intense stuff. I love it that now I'm not the only one that gets to read random stuff. Dulce, because of course she's managing the social media accounts. Sometimes we'll get like very intense questions and very intense messages, and it's like I am not a professional. This is not a professional setting where I can help you with this. I can provide you some like resources, because through what we do, we have gathered resources in the sense of like this is where you should go, this is where you should get this information. But yeah, a lot of things are like super intense, and I do not know what to do with that, or like how to react, or if I react in a wrong way and then you take it in a wrong way, and then so yeah, it's I think that when you are even like a little bit vulnerable, or you show something that is like might seem like you are, then people feel open to like, I don't know, like emotion dump on you or something like that. And I feel like that happens a lot during the holidays and transitioning into like the New Year's. That's a lot.
It is. It really is. And it's like, well, I've been reading this book called The School of Life, and it's like talking about how at school you don't learn about how to deal with your emotions.
Nope.
And I thought that concept was so interesting, because we don't, like even this, like, how do you react when someone shares something vulnerable with you and you don't want to say the wrong thing?
Well, I do want to say shout out to the schools that are making some effort. I teach those type of courses in some of our local high schools, and I'm so happy that there is interest in teaching teens, because they are in a heightened emotional state, because just how our brains are working at that age, to realize this from both sides, like when you're on the receiving end, but also when you are on the like dumping end. Like, how are you going to communicate what you're really trying to communicate? Like, do you even have words for what you're feeling? Do you even know where it's coming from, or do you know what triggered it, or is there a way that you can figure that out? And like you said, usually if you do not go through a program like that or whatever, it is in your 20s, because that's when you enter adulthood and you start to having to do stuff for yourself, where you find yourself like, okay, like I need to figure this out, otherwise I'm going to keep sabotaging myself or like hurting myself or others if I don't figure it out. And then we tend to look at like other people, and they're like at different places of this process. And you're like, but wait, what did you do? How did it work for you? So yeah, I mean, it is expectations are hard. But let's talk a little bit about your big switch going into like the creative industry full time. I think that is also something that younger people tend to struggle with around this time, especially because maybe if they do share goals, the goals might not be understood by other people, maybe like older family members. Maybe some of them are open where you can explain and they'll understand that. But how do you work with that? How do you still like talk to people who might be in a very traditional way of living and way of making money, and then communicating how your goals and your structure and the way that you're gonna move into like this new month, into this new quarter, whatever works in comparison to them? How does that work? Tell us a little bit about that. I'm in a very traditional sphere, so tell me.
I mean, I feel like I've learned to communicate certain things to certain people and other people not.
Okay.
Because I think some people won't understand, and that's fine. Of course, if they show interest, I'd love to explain it. But I think also to avoid getting like disappointed by people who say it won't work out, or them telling me things that because they don't understand the industry of stuff, like I'm like protecting myself, and I'll just maybe make it sound shinier than it is, or just say that I'm doing fine, and seek feedback from people that maybe do understand or are in the industry. But I feel like the thing about goals as well, especially being a creative person that is still trying to figure out who she is and what she wants to do, sometimes I've also felt like really put in a box, and then meeting up with someone and them asking me about that specific thing that I maybe not interested anymore, or maybe even struggling with, and that's hard, for them to bring that up again. And I feel like that's also something I've learned to not do with others, you know, like don't put them in a box. I feel like that's maybe also really traditional, and that's just how kind of the world worked, you know, like find one thing you really like and do it for the rest of your life. And it sounds like a blessing. Sometimes I'm like, I wish I had that, because I feel like then I could just be an expert in one thing and just I've never had to feel lost. But I also embrace it now. I'm like, you know, I'm just learning as I go, and it's fun to have different skills and to I think it's also a privilege, totally, you know, to be able to have that freedom to discover different things I like.
Have you had people ask you like, you know, but is it like a real job, or do you even make money with that, or is it like for now, or is it like, do you really want to do this long term? Like, do you get that type of questions, or like that type of like comments?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's more like a show don't tell kind of thing, and
Okay.
I feel like I'm actually pretty bad at talking about my job. I have a boyfriend that he's like, you never talk about your job, and he's always like, she's doing this and this, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know, like because I feel like it is a complicated job, and on the other hand, it's also I also find it like a privilege of what kind of job I'm doing. But yeah, totally, I feel like especially growing up here, it wasn't very like, even at school, it wasn't like go get a creative job, you know. I
No,
remember
at all.
wanting to do like photography, and people being like, how do you make money with that? Like that's more like a hobby. And I get it, like it is very risky, and it is very uncertain. It really is. It still is today. I don't know what's gonna happen next month, and I never thought I'd be that type of person. I met my boyfriend like around 7 years ago, and he was always like that, very entrepreneurial, and I was like, I don't get it. I'd rather just like have something really stable.
He has been like that since like middle school, because I know him since middle school. So he has very much been like that since like forever, right?
True entrepreneur.
Yes.
It's insane. I find it really like a skill. So, you know, it is scary, and it is like, you know, I don't have kids. I don't, you know, have anything that ties me down to be able to be that risky. But sometimes it is complicated to explain to people, and I do want to encourage people to still like chase your dreams. And I feel like one motto I've been having for myself is like dream bigger. Even though we've been talking about goals and everything, I feel like if you really, really want something, like it can happen. It just takes a bit of hard work and trusting yourself.
Yeah, and I think maybe, you know, I'm just thinking here that we might be like a little afraid of like saying or explaining some things to people because of what you said, right? Because we can almost expect their reaction, right? We can almost expect, especially because we, you know, as you grow, you learn to read people, and sometimes we read them bad, but it is a human skill that we get, where we eventually, because we put people into boxes, of course, we tend to be able to predict which type of person might you know, be interested in something, or might not react, you know, as you thought towards something. And then, like you said, you might find yourself like not sharing, whereas to like maybe Ravi does feel like sharing a little bit more about your situation. But you know, is it like, now I'm gonna ask you, is it because you don't even want to engage in that energy, where you're like, it really doesn't even matter what your opinion is, or is it still where you feel like that opinion might get a little bit to me, and I want to protect my energy?
What kind of opinion do you mean?
Like if somebody might say like, oh, what does that really mean? Like, you know, or so is it like, it's like playing with your phone, or I don't know, stuff like that, right? Or I'm gonna use myself as an example. Like I do a lot of volunteer work, and I'll have like, you know, every other time I'll have people being like, you know, but what is it really that you really do? Like, you guys just sit in a meeting, and like, you know, like does it even like matter, or stuff like that, right? And I'm in a lobbying organization, so you work a lot on stuff that is intangible. And then I'll think twice about how much I'll talk about the work that I do, like in Fundação Autismo, for example, and like, you know, in depth, and and how do we do. But like lately I have found myself where they ask me about like traditional autismo, then I say something that I feel like people are gonna be like, oh wow, because I do, no matter what, still want to validate the fact that I am giving my time for free in this case, right, to this thing, right? I want to make it make sense for people who might not see it. So then like now this year we're gonna go to the United Nations and stuff like that, and then I say that and I'm like, yes, we're going good, we're going to the United Nations, right? And then everybody like, oh wow. And then I'm like, we've been doing awesome work for like a very long time, but then it's not enough for people to like validate the fact that I am spending my time and energy in this project, right? And it's like both things. Sometimes I really don't care. But if I'm tired and, trying to find the energy to finish some stuff, then yeah, if somebody tells me like, and then here in Aruba, like you said, people feel like filters is like, and they'll say stuff like, shouldn't you be spending this time with your husband or with your family or, stuff like that? Or you could be making more money if you spend this time and energy doing something that's monetized. And that can be like super stressful, right? How do you experience it? Like when people might have like opinions like that, is it more like I don't even want to engage in this conversation, or is it more like I do want to protect my energy and I kind of don't want to be put into like a questionable box or whatever?
Yeah, I do feel like I kind of protect my own energy, and maybe it is like a show and don't tell thing. And I think being in social media, you learn a lot about seeking validation. I think social media seems very much like you're constantly seeking validation. You're constantly
like instant.
Yeah. So I feel like I've just learned to like not maybe seek that from certain people or seek that understanding. And I guess it also depends about the people you have around you. But yeah, sometimes it can be frustrating. I think it also it's a very like glamorized industry, and I feel like sometimes it's really hard to explain it. Like, I don't just do unboxings all day. I have, I make certain videos, and if they don't understand, they don't. But I can understand if I say, oh, I do things online. People have this picture of what it is, but I don't feel like pressure to change that idea they have of me. I'm like, if you want to see, you'll see, and whatever. I don't feel pressure to clarify the wrong idea they have of it, I guess. Yeah.
That's good. I mean, I personally think that it's good. You have to choose who you really want to do that with. I'm big on that. I have grown bigger on that. So we use this passion project, right, to try to bring topics that I think are important in a way that I hope is informative, and I hope is teaching somebody something, is creating more empathy, where people are like listening to people and being like, oh, okay, maybe I should think twice if I should ask about that or whatever. But then, like you said, if it's people closer to me, then I might go into it and be like, we really need to talk about this, because I really, I'm not okay with you expressing like that in regards to the situation or whatever. But then, maybe with like a colleague or whatever, I would be like, I'm not gonna do this. We're just gonna let it go. And then if it happens repeatedly, then I might address it, because it's like affecting me personally. But I think that social media has created something in like the younger generations, and I see it in my nieces, for example. Like one is 18, one is 12, and where you almost become like self-conscious, because everything you put out there can be like taken in whatever person's perspective, and be interpreted in whatever way they want to, and then you have to over-explain yourself, and that might create two types of people, where you'll have the person that like posts nothing, and they're super self-conscious. If they do post something, that they might like remove it afterwards. They don't want to be tagged, they don't share tags, because what if the picture is not perfect, or I don't know if I want to be seen with this person, whatever. And then you have the other person who's like over explaining everything, right? So they'll post a post and maybe nobody said something, and then they'll go into explain and say like, what I meant was, how do you see that, and how do you navigate that as a person who is consistent on social media?
Oh, I feel like one thing that also just came up in my mind is like being a woman and having to prove yourself.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to making money and things. I do see it with someone that, like if they do something, it's very like glorified, and if we do something, it's like, oh, you make stupid little videos on the internet, like does that really make money? And
Yeah.
I think there is kind of like a pressure for women to have to prove themselves, so maybe it does come from there, feeling that pressure to be like, but this is a serious thing and take me serious.
Yeah.
I am doing something serious.
Totally. And it's in all areas of life.
Oh yeah.
I feel, right? Yeah. I see it too, and I feel it too, right? It's like sometimes I'll see, I'll be in meetings or on like forums or whatever, and then I'll say something, and then a man repeats it, and I hear people going like, "Oh yeah," and like before, I want to say before, like a couple of years ago, I would literally like go in like complete inner panic because I'm like, am I hallucinating or something? Because like I feel like I said that, and like there was like no or minimal reaction or something, and I would really like fight with myself and my brain where I'm like, oh my gosh, like am I imagining stuff, like. And now I do this thing, and I know it's a little awkward, but I just like say it verbally, and I'm like, I just said that. And it's not because I want to be like a smart mouth or whatever, but because what you just said, like as a woman, and it's not just with other men, it's with other women too, because it's how society is wired. I find myself like constantly making sure that I don't let it pass. Where I do want it to be like noted in like people's mental records or whatever, that you chose to ignore like a woman's opinion. And in Aruba, ageism is like a real thing, especially in like more traditional professional settings. So it's like a double down. It's like you chose to ignore young women's opinion, and then glorified it when like an older man repeated it. So I make sure that I like express it, and it's kind of scary because like some people will be like, yeah, I was like, oh, we didn't hear you, or like whatever, and then it's like almost like the gas line that comes afterwards, because it's like, didn't you though, like
100%.
But that happens in the online presence too, but it's different because people are behind a screen. You do not you cannot hear their tone. You do not know sometimes who these people even are, or why they think they're allowed to do something like that. And people steal stuff on social media, like opinions too. I've had a male politician do that to me, like steal my content and not even like rebrand it, like just like put his name on it, and it was like infuriating. And then you're like, oh my gosh, like it's not serious like when I do it, because some people shared it, but then this person did it and it was shared like over so many times, and I was pissed. And I'm like, is it more serious because like it's a guy who's in politics like sharing it? Like it's the same information, and it took me time to research it, to put it together and all this stuff. And then it's so yeah. How do you navigate that when you see stuff and you're like, it's like, this is technically like mine, or like this, like I worked on this, and then somebody else is like using it in a way that it was not intended to be used or whatever. Like how do you navigate that in your world?
I feel like luckily I haven't experienced it
in
how you experienced it. That's very intense.
Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I am not letting it go, because I know that like the next elections are coming up, so y'all might be thinking like with Carolina, I'm like, maybe this is a warning, do not do that, people, next elections. Like literally. But yeah. What do you experience where you're like you'll see stuff and you're like, but hold up, like why is this like working and why is mine not, or what do you feel that
I can't think of anything specific, honestly. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like now I'm at a very good place with the internet.
That's
which is
good.
Something very crazy to say, but I think I am at an interesting, good place with the internet. So yeah, very lucky. Not to say that it's like sometimes it's like mentally challenging, but I think for everyone to deal with social media. But I'm very lucky. I feel like I've curated certain types of people that
Yes.
I really found my audience, and I'm very grateful. You probably have the way your audience here, like these are my people. Like I feel
I don't
safe
get
here.
like a lot of like weird messages, and I see that in your content too, and I think that's like really nice to see because when you see like other content and stuff like that, and then you
Yeah.
see like how people react with it,
Yeah.
or how people feel like they are allowed
Yeah.
to react around it or work with it. So I'm really happy to see it, and I think it has to do with, although you said like, you know, you were a people pleaser, and I think to a very large extent I used to be that too when I was much younger. But I think it's also how you present yourself, that you are immediately like creating a certain boundary, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is acceptable, what is not.
Exactly, and I think it's also like, I don't know if it's a thing like that, but it's also like platforms. I'm not really on Instagram. I remember being on TikTok, and I remember vividly when I was here last year and posting stuff on Aruba, and I think I went to a tunnel. I'm not gonna say the name because I said it wrong in the TikTok,
Okay,
and
no
people
worries.
went off, you know, and
Oh.
and then those are moments where you're like, okay, I don't need like 200 people telling me like one is fine, you know, and I think people can get very defensive sometimes, but yeah, that's just
Nationalism is big here.
you can't say anything wrong.
Yes, no, not about Aruba.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see how that is. Yeah, and I've seen it happen to a lot of like creative people who are either like locals or not locals even, who will come here and they just say something because they shared it and they thought it was interesting, and then they get that, right?
Yeah, it is really important to think about what you share, especially as, you know, people are going to say, especially with the algorithm, you don't even need to have followers. People don't think sometimes, and especially like with Aruba, like it has impact, and I also think about that now. Like I know it if you say something negative, like people will see it and it can have impact, and it's very important that we don't do that. So.
Or we think about like what the goal is, like putting out
Exactly.
something.
What's the intention?
Yes. So I do wanna, you know, tell everybody who's listening that, you know, I don't wanna say like this is a New Year's goal, but maybe this is a way of setting like a good New Year's goal. Maybe think about like how we react to, you know, to content online, but also when we talk to people, and you know, ask yourself like, before we ask like very deep personal questions, or before we impose like what we think people should be doing at a certain time in their lives, or a certain time of the year or whatever, think about like, you know, do I really need to know this, or do I really like, is this really important, like is this the core of the reason why I'm reaching out to this person, and think about that, right? If you just want to connect to a person, maybe do not ask them about like their marital status and like stuff like that. Like, that's weird. Stop doing that. You know. But maybe think about like checking in about like, hey, how are you doing? What are you into these days, right? What are you doing for fun, or what's bringing you joy, or whatever. I think that we will get a lot more out of people if we focus on those things rather than like specific societal like milestones that are for some people like impossible to attain, and also unrealistic in today's conditions, you know, economical and societal and whatever else. But yeah, I do think that as we go into like this new year and we start bumping into people that we think twice about, like, do we really want to connect, or do we just want to have intense small talk? Because that's what it is at the end of the day, like asking somebody, how's your job, where do you work, and stuff like that. You know, it's just intense small talk, and like, is that really important?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is what you said about not taking it personally. Like you
Awesome.
said, at the break grocery store, if someone is not, you can maybe sense they're not in the mood. Maybe it has nothing to do with you. I think as humans, we're very natural to be like, they don't like me, or I did something wrong. Maybe they're just having a bad day.
Exactly, and we're allowed to have those. You know, that's normalized, having less good days or bad days or whatever. And remember, people don't owe us anything. I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind too. You know, as we as we go into this new calendar year, like people do not owe us anything, so whatever they do volunteer to share or explain, take it for what it is. Appreciate it if you want to. If not, that's also fine. But yeah, I guess that is something, right?
100%.
How did you experience today talking to me?
I love it. It's live. That's something very new to me.
I mean, it's just a conversation. We can't edit it, but yeah.
Yeah, so I love that, and I think we can relate on a lot of topics, and I'm really, really glad that you gave me the space to share my thoughts as well.
I'm happy to have you here, and for the people who do not know you, where can they find you and what you do?
So you can find me at Bibi-Jane Angelica, and you can find me on Instagram, and there everything is linked. My podcast is linked there as well.
Yes, and she has different like lengths of episodes. Some things are like very short, some things are longer. So I like that you have that, like, different types of listeners can like tune into that then. And thank you again for being here today and talking a little bit. Hopefully some people listened and it makes them think about like what conversations we should be having with others, but also to be more compassionate with themselves, that it really is okay to be doing your own thing, and it is okay not to start the year with like goals. It is okay not to have like a laundry list of things you're supposed to achieve each month and be doing, and numbers and stuff like that. Life is a continuous thing, and of course it's marked by days and hours and months and whatever, but it just keeps going. So don't waste your time too much on like trying to measure things, because just live, right?
I love it.
Thank you so much for accepting my invitation and being here. I am looking forward to next week, and I'm not sure what we're going to talk about specifically, but I'm definitely going to start touching on Carnival, because Carnival is soon this year. And I hope that, once again, you had a good start of your year, week, work, whatever, for the ones that are starting on Monday, like teachers and students. Take it a day at a time. I know some of you are entering and then you have to go right into exams and stuff like that. Give yourself some grace. I absolutely despise the systems that puts like exams right after breaks. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but it is a horrible idea, and it does stuff to people in their brains, and that's not nice. So whomever is in charge of that, please reconsider. There are ways to do it where you don't have to do that. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out of my system, because I always feel so bad for the youth and anybody who's still in school and has to like go and prepare for exams right after, winter break. I'm like, oh my God. But yes, so, enjoy Carnival today. For those that are going, be safe. Once again, I am going to repeat that. Please be safe, for yourself, for others. If you're going with friends, have a system. Do not leave your friend behind. Have a plan. Drink lots of water. And yeah, be nice, right? We're not going to push people and whatever. And for those of you who are doing last minute decoration and shopping, do not yell at the people at the stores, because it's not their fault that you're doing last minute stuff. And I say this because I see a lot of you doing stuff. I saw a lot of you behaving certain ways during Christmas shopping, and we talked about this, right? Be patient. It's like you make choices, that's the result, right? We just gotta think about it. So yeah. Thank you, of course, to my awesome sponsors for allowing us to talk about whatever we want to talk about today, which was, pressure. So thank you to La Roche, thank you to Toto, thank you to Febreze. I appreciate you so much. Happy to have you again for another episode. And thank you, of course, to Kula Fam for giving me the space. Sibo atunan un tikilat anto bata catching the end of this. Do not worry, bopor escucha full episode back. Riba Kula Fam sa YouTube, Facebook, Sincerely Carolina's YouTube. And se você não follow me ainda on social media, you don't have to, but it's nice if you do. My Instagram tá @sincerely.carolina. E se você quer tem a more informative side of this, onde eu nós compartilhar more written information, longer captions and stuff like that. Gotta follow at Zenith Talks. Dulce is gonna be around for a couple of more weeks, and I do not have a plan for when she leaves, and I am starting to get stressed out about it. So I just want to say thank you to Dulce once again for, choosing to do her internship for Sincerely Carolina. I appreciate you. And yeah, I look forward to another week of a live episode. It's been a while and I missed it. So yeah, see you. Be nice. Make better choices. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm Carolina, and I am the host of Sincerely Carolina, a series